2020 has seen the tragic passing of some of the biggest stars in the world of entertainment, but there has also been a long list of wildly talented yet less recognizable famous faces who have joined them. These are the celebs that you may not know died in 2020. On January 18th, 2020, folk singer David Olney died during a performance. Olney grew silent and slumped on his stool at the 30A Songwriters Festival in Florida. The audience, as well as his accompanying musicians, reportedly believed at first that Olney was simply pausing, until his fellow performers realized what had happened. Musician Amy Rigby, who was performing alongside Olney at the time, wrote on Facebook, "Olney was in the middle of his third song when he stopped, apologized, and shut his eyes. I just want the picture to be as graceful and dignified as it was, because it at first just looked like he was taking a moment." Rigby added that there were attempts to revive Olney, but they sadly failed. Over the span of his career, Olney recorded 20 albums and had a number of other music legends cover his songs, including Linda Ronstadt, Emmylou Harris, and his own former roommate Steve Earle. He first gained popularity as a member of the X-Rays, opening for iconic artists like Elvis Costello before going solo. Olney was 71 years old when he died. On February 5th, 2020, actor Kevin Conway died at the age of 77, after suffering a heart attack. The New York City native's first breakthrough role was as Ronald Weary in Slaughterhouse-5 in 1972, but he went on to score dozens of film and television credits throughout his career. Conway had an illustrious stage career as well, winning a Drama Desk Award for an off-Broadway performance in When You Coming Back, Red Ryder in 1974. He appeared in Indians with Stacy Ketch and Raul Julia on Broadway in 1970. Starred opposite James Earl Jones in Of Mice and Men on Broadway in 1975, and featured alongside Philip Anglin in The Elephant Man in 1979. Conway's most famous role, however, was in the 1993 film Gettysburg.
What matters, Colonel, is justice.
His final credit, strangely enough, was as the voice of Daniel Webster in an upcoming documentary titled The Gettysburg Address. Comedian and actor Orson Bean died on February 7th, 2020 after a tragic traffic accident in the Venice neighborhood of Los Angeles. He was 91 years old. TMZ reported that Bean was allegedly jaywalking when he was clipped by one vehicle and then struck by another. The incident is reportedly currently under investigation, but the outlet reports that it's unlikely the drivers will be charged, as no actual illegal activity occurred. Bean had more than 100 film and screen credits to his name, as well as more than 200 appearances on The Tonight Show during the Johnny Carson and Jack Paar years. Bean lived a colorful life off-screen too. His father had been a founding member of the American Civil Liberties Union, and during Hollywood's blacklist era, Bean was forced out of the industry for a year because he began dating a communist. He turned to theater during the time to make ends meet, but eventually resumed his career in the 1970s after moving to Australia. Bean was married to actress Ali Mills, best known for playing Mom, Norma Arnold on The Wonder Years. They had been together for 27 years until his tragic passing. Lynn Cohen, famous for her role as Miranda Hobbs' housekeeper Magda in Sex and the City, died on February 14th, 2020. She was 86 years old. Cohen was a Kansas City native who eventually became a Broadway regular. In addition to being nominated for the Drama League and Lucille Lortel Awards, the actress also won several awards during her stage career, including the New Dramatists Bowden Award, Fox Fellow Award, Lilly Award, and the Richard Seff Award from Actors Equity Association. Known for her sprightly sense of humor, Cohen joked in a 2014 CBS interview about working with It Girl Jennifer Lawrence and hunk Sam Claflin and Liam Hemsworth on Catching Fire.
Those three beautiful people and Sam Claflin, I was so hard I could hardly stand.
Yeah.
I was on his back for 4 months. It was just terrible.
Lynn is survived by her husband, Ronald Cohen. MASH star Kellye Nakahara died on February 16th, 2020 at the age of 72. Her son told the outlet that the actress had suffered a short battle with cancer and passed away while surrounded by her loved ones at her home in California. Nakahara was an Oahu, Hawaii native, who started as an extra on MASH but had a memorable turn in a 1982 episode when her character, Lieutenant Nurse Kelly Yamato, revealed her crush on Hawkeye. In the end, the actress appeared in 185 episodes of the series, including the record-shattering season finale. Nakahara's MASH co-star Loretta Swift told Fox News in a statement, "She radiated sparkle and goodness and joy. The light that her presence brought will be deeply and forever missed." Alan Alda, who played Hawkeye on the show, also expressed his condolences, telling the outlet, "Nakahara was a beautiful person and a natural as an actor. She was adorable and brilliant in the part, but you couldn't beat what she was as a person. Funnier and warmer and kinder than most people I've known. We all loved her on MASH and we're all heartbroken to know she's gone." Most famous for her role as Willona on Good Times, legendary star Janae DuBois died on February 17, 2020. The New York Times reports that DuBois' family listed her age as 74, but that she may have actually been older. DuBois also performed and co-wrote Moving On Up, the theme song to The Jeffersons. DuBois' daughter Kesha Gupta Field said she wrote that song as a promise to her mother, that when she obtained a certain level of stardom, that her dream was to essentially have her mom live in a deluxe apartment. DuBois grew up in Philadelphia before moving to Brooklyn. She had an illustrious Broadway career and ran a young actors workshop before moving to Los Angeles. After Good Times, DuBois kept acting, most notably turning to an Emmy-nominated performance as Mrs. Avery on The PJs. Many of DuBois' contemporaries took to social media to mourn the loss of their friend and colleague. Janet Jackson, who co-starred on Good Times, wrote on Instagram that she was so very saddened over DuBois' death. Jackson added, "I saw firsthand how she broke stereotypes and changed the landscape for black women in entertainment. I'm grateful in recent years I had a chance to see her and create more lasting memories." Norman Lear, creator of Good Times, tweeted, "Janae DuBois was all light and will be missed. I love that she wrote the theme song for her passing, Moving On Up." Former NASCAR racer Candace Muzny was found dead in her Oklahoma City home on February 17, 2020. She was just 43 years old. ABC 13 reported that police initially declared Muzny's death as suspicious, though a later report claimed that her cause of death was an accidental drowning. Muzny competed in NASCAR's late model divisions and K&N Pro Series, among other top-level competitions. She had also been released from prison just a month before her death. In January 2020, Muzny was arrested and charged with assault with a dangerous weapon and assault and battery on a police officer after getting into an altercation at a nail salon. Muzny was accused of slapping a manicurist for speaking Vietnamese to a colleague, as well as punching another salon worker in the face and threatening him with a pocket knife when he called police. When a responding officer tried to arrest Muzny, her dog allegedly attacked him and Muzny allegedly hit him with her pocket knife, cutting him near his ear. In an interview with Heavy, Muzny denied striking the officer but snapped, "The manicurist needs to get back to Vietnam. If she wants to live in America and serve Americans, she needs to speak the language they speak." Muzny also said in the interview, "I'd give my last $5 for anybody. I'm a very good person. I think all people have good and bad in them." Legendary jazz pianist McCoy Tyner died on March 6, 2020 at 81 years old. His family announced in a statement via Twitter. They wrote, "McCoy was an inspired musician who devoted his life to his art, his family, and his spirituality. McCoy Tyner's music and legacy will continue to inspire fans and future talent for generations to come." A Philadelphia native, Tyner first began playing piano when he was 13, performed in an R&B band when he was in high school, and by age 21 began performing with John Coltrane's quartet.
He was an inspiration to me, very serious, very creative, and I think that the quartet really made its mark on the world.
In 1961, Coltrane spoke about Tyner to the New York Times, saying, "He's sort of the one who gives me wings and lets me take off from the ground from time to time." Following a number of creative differences, Tyner parted ways with Coltrane's band on good terms and released his own works from the 1970s through 1990s, including some tributes to Coltrane himself. Of his work with Coltrane, Tyner said in a 2001 interview, "The thing is, sometimes when you are in the middle of something, you don't realize the sort of impact it is having on the world. I knew that our band was very special, and I knew it from the response we were getting from the public. But when I look back in retrospect, after I heard it, I remember saying to myself, that is really amazing." Prolific playwright Terrence McNally died on March 24, 2020, from coronavirus complications. He was 81 years old. McNally reportedly also suffered from chronic obstructive pulmonary heart disease for years before his passing. The Broadway icon wrote some of the world's best-loved and long-running productions. McNally was born in St. Petersburg, Florida, and grew up in Corpus Christi, before moving to the Big Apple. He studied journalism at Columbia University before he began writing plays, and went on to win 4 Tony Awards throughout his dazzling career, beginning with And Things That Go Bump in the Night in 1965, Love, Valor, Compassion in 1995, and Masterclass in 1996. He won a Lifetime Achievement Tony Award in 1982, the same year that Broadway hosted a revival of his play Frankie and Johnny at the Claire de Lune. The stage icon is survived by his husband Tom Curdehy. Andrew Jack, a dialect coach and an actor in the Star Wars franchise, passed away from complications of coronavirus on March 31, 2020 at 76 years old. Jack appeared in Star Wars The Force Awakens and Star Wars The Last Jedi and served as a dialect coach for the British star John Boyega in the films. Jack also provided his linguistic talents to a long list of blockbuster films, including Avengers Endgame, Lord of the Rings, and the upcoming The Batman movie, which was still in production when Jack died. Jack was reportedly a master of not only Western dialects, but also of Japanese and Chinese dialects as well. Jack's agent Jill McCullough told Deadline, he loved his work and was funny, charming, and a joy to be around. Dialect coaching isn't just about being good at accents. You need to make your actors feel safe and confident, and Andrew's actors absolutely adored him. Meanwhile, Anthony Daniels, who plays C-3PO in Star Wars, tweeted, he was a joy to be with on the new trilogy. As dialect coach, he helped the cast get it right through his talent and humor. As an actor, his distinguished features made him stand out in any scene. Legendary jazz pianist Ellis Marsalis died at age 85 on April 1st, 2020, from complications from coronavirus. Marsalis was a musical patriarch, father to a number of jazz icons, including Wynton Marsalis, a renowned trumpeter and Grammy and Pulitzer Prize winner. In 2011, Ellis and his sons were each named Jazz Masters by the National Endowment for the Arts, the first time the title was awarded to a group and not an individual. In addition to cultivating his son's talents, Ellis was also a prolific music teacher, instructing greats such as Harry Connick Jr. and Terrence Blanchard. After his passing, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell tweeted, Ellis Marsalis was a legend. He was the prototype of what we mean when we talk about New Orleans jazz. Meanwhile, son Branford Marsalis told the New York Times, my dad was a giant of a musician and teacher, but an even greater father. He poured everything he had into making us the best of what we could be. He later told WBUR he was still having a hard time processing his father's passing, but reflected on what Ellis taught him. In your life, all you can do at any given time is the best that you can do at that time. And it's not a reflection on how you will be later. And that was the best lesson that he could have ever given us for music and for our lives. John Paul Bucky Pizzarelli died on April 1st, 2020, shortly after testing positive for COVID-19. He was 94 years old. Pizzarelli was born in Paterson, New Jersey, and first played music professionally when he was just 17 years old as a member of Vaughn Monroe's band. Throughout his career as a backing guitarist, Pizzarelli featured on Ray Charles's Georgia on My Mind, Ben E. King's Stand By Me, and Brian Hyland's Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini. He served as an NBC staff musician in the early 1950s, playing for The Tonight Show until Johnny Carson moved the show to California. Pizzarelli later performed live with a number of legends, including Miles Davis, Paul McCartney, and Frank Sinatra. By the 1980s, Bucky had begun collaborating with his son, John, and those efforts would be his most famous.
When it clicks, the sparks start flying around, and that's what we like.
Both Bucky and his son were known for playing 7-string guitars instead of the usual 6. In 1997, Bucky said of performing live with John, he got his baptism of fire, with me giving him dirty looks when he played a wrong chord. Bill Withers, legendary singer of classics such as Lean on Me, Just the Two of Us, Ain't No Sunshine, and Lovely Day, died on April 3rd, 2020 at 81 years old. Withers' studio career was surprisingly short for the length and depth of his legacy, with his last album having been recorded in 1985. His first album, Just As I Am, dropped in 1971, spawning the Grammy-winning hit Ain't No Sunshine, which was initially a B-side. In 1972, he released a handful more hits, including Lean on Me, Who Is He and What Is He to You, and Use Me. Withers' career petered out in the late 1970s after his label Sussex Records was folded into Columbia Records, although he won another Grammy for Just the Two of Us in 1981, a duet with Grover Washington Jr. Withers' family told the Associated Press, "We are devastated by the loss of our beloved, devoted husband and father. A solitary man with a heart driven to connect to the world at large. With his poetry and music, he spoke honestly to people and connected them to each other. In this difficult time, we pray his music offers comfort and entertainment as fans hold tight to loved ones." Shirley Douglas, Canadian actress and mother of actor Kiefer Sutherland, died on April 5th, 2020. Douglas was 86 years old and passed away from complications from pneumonia. Sutherland announced on Twitter, noting that her illness was not related to COVID-19. Among many other films, Douglas starred in Stanley Kubrick's Lolita and made a number of television appearances, including in Wind at My Back. Her stage work included a 1997 run alongside Sutherland in The Glass Menagerie. Douglas was also an avid activist protesting the Vietnam War, and supporting both the civil rights movement and Friends of Black Panthers. Sutherland tweeted, "My mother was an extraordinary woman who led an extraordinary life. Sadly, she had been battling for her health for quite some time, and we as a family knew this day was coming. To any families who have lost loved ones unexpectedly to the coronavirus, my heart breaks for you. Please stay safe." Honor Blackman, one of the most famous Bond girls ever, died from natural causes on April 6, 2020. She was 94 years old. Blackman was most famous for starring in Goldfinger, but also known for playing Kathy Gale in the 1960s spy TV series The Avengers and Hera in Jason and the Argonauts. Her stage work included roles in productions of My Fair Lady, Cabaret, and The Sound of Music. In a statement, her family said, "With an extraordinary combination of beauty, brains, and physical prowess, along with her unique voice and a dedicated work ethic, she achieved an unparalleled iconic status in the world of film and entertainment." NFL Hall of Fame star Willie Davis died on April 15, 2020 at 85 years old. He passed away peacefully after being hospitalized for kidney failure for a month in Santa Monica. Davis was first drafted to the NFL in 1956, but didn't actually start playing until 2 years later because he was serving in the Army. He played for the Cleveland Browns in 1958 before trading to the Packers in 1960. He became the first African-American Packers defense co-captain in 1965 and the first solo defense captain in 1966. He led the Packers to victory in the first 2 Super Bowls and was both a 5-time Pro Bowler and Associated Press All-Pro. Davis was inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame in 1975, before entering the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1981. In a statement, Packers president and CEO Mark Murphy highlighted Davis's work beyond the field, saying, "He also was a great role model for our players, having gone on to a very successful career after football and serving on the Packers board of directors. We extend our deepest condolences to Willie's wife, Carol, and his family and friends." Sadly, these aren't the only celebs who have left us in 2020 so far. Here are some of the other stars who enhanced our lives before leaving us all too soon. Norma Michaels, Ed Burns, John Carlin, Esther Scott, Marge Doucet, Robert Conrad, Paula Kelly, Claudette Nevins, Bobby Batista, Roscoe Bourne, Stuart Whitman, Lyle Wagner, David Schramm, Genesis P. Orridge, Lee Fierro, Patricia Bosworth, James Drury, Dieter Laser, Julie Bennett, Danny Goldman, Hilary Heath, Alan Garfield, Tom Lester, Howard Finkel, Harold Reed, Brian Howe, Gino Silva, Frank Bilek, Phyllis George, Ken Osmond, Richard Hurd, Mary Pat Gleason.